Welcome to episode 97, Budget and Staffing Models That Work, where we explore how effective financial and personnel planning determines the long-term success of high-trust programs. Every certification, whether E1, I1, or R2, depends not only on technical control maturity, but also on the stability of its funding and workforce. A great plan can fail without proper budgeting, and even the best tools falter without trained staff to manage them. Sound budgeting turns compliance from a one-time expense into a recurring investment that strengthens governance year after year. When leadership sees that costs are predictable, staffing is structured, and resource utilization aligns with results, assurance becomes a managed business function rather than a financial surprise. Budgets decide feasibility because certification is not a static purchase. It is an ongoing operational commitment. Each assessment cycle brings direct expenses, such as assessor fees, tool subscriptions, and evidence maintenance, plus indirect costs like staff time and process refinement. Underestimating these inputs can derail even well-intentioned programs. A mature organization budgets across the entire life cycle: readiness, assessment, remediation, and renewal. For example, the first year of an R2 effort may focus on foundational spending, policies, tools, and training, while subsequent years stabilize into maintenance mode. Transparent budgeting creates credibility with executives who want to see cost control linked to measurable compliance outcomes. Without this foresight, certification risks becoming a recurring budget shock rather than a sustainable practice. Cost drivers vary significantly by assessment type. An E1 assessment typically requires limited scope, minimal assessor hours, and fewer sampling activities, keeping total cost manageable. Moving to I1 expands both internal and external workloads, more evidence, broader testing, and tighter governance reviews. R2 introduces formal validation, deeper sampling, and cross-framework mapping, which multiply effort. Key drivers include assessor time, internal labor, technology licensing, and consultant support. For instance, hourly rates for assessors may differ based on engagement complexity or multi-site requirements. Understanding these variables helps leaders scale investment proportionally. A cost model tied to assessment level prevents overfunding early phases or underfunding high-assurance efforts later, ensuring steady, risk-aligned progression. Internal staffing roles in time commitments form the backbone of cost planning. Common roles include a compliance lead, evidence coordinator, system owners, security analysts, and executive sponsors. Smaller organizations might combine several roles into one position, while larger enterprises distribute them across departments. Tracking labor hours clarifies hidden costs. Each hour diverted to documentation or meetings represents opportunity cost elsewhere. For example, evidence coordination can consume hundreds of hours annually if not automated. Assigning dedicated personnel rather than relying on volunteers prevents burnout and improves consistency. R2-ready programs often maintain a small but permanent governance team whose work rhythm supports continuous readiness. Treating staff time as budgeted capital, planned, measured, and optimized, turns human effort into predictable performance. Assessor fees and engagement models represent one of the largest external expenditures. Fees depend on assessment type, system count, scope complexity, and evidence maturity. E1 assessments may run from tens of thousands of dollars, while full R2 validations can exceed six figures. Engagement models vary. Some organizations contract for a one-time project, others establish multi-year partnerships with fixed annual retainers. For example, locking in a 3-year engagement provides price stability and faster renewals because the assessor already understands the environment. Budgeting should also account for pre-assessment readiness reviews and post-assessment corrective action verification. Transparency in scope and timelines keeps costs aligned with expectations, while competitive selection ensures value without compromising assessor quality or independence. The decision to build versus buy evidence tooling has long-term financial implications. Custom-built systems offer precise integration with internal workflows, but demand development effort, ongoing maintenance, and security oversight. Purchased platforms, while more expensive upfront, deliver faster deployment, built-in updates, and assessor familiarity. For example, a healthcare organization might build an internal SharePoint-based evidence library initially, but migrate later to a specialized compliance automation platform as scale grows. A hybrid approach, custom integration layered on commercial tools, often balances flexibility and sustainability. In R2 budgeting, the right tooling investment can offset thousands of staff hours annually, turning upfront cost into recurring efficiency. Training costs for critical roles are often overlooked but essential for maintaining independence and quality. Compliance staff, control owners, and assessors in training all require periodic education to stay aligned with evolving HITRUST guidance and cybersecurity best practices. Budgeting for certification courses, workshops, and internal knowledge sessions sustains maturity across cycles. For example, training evidence coordinators on new HITRUST portal workflows prevents costly rework later. Leadership should view training not as discretionary, but as foundational infrastructure, the human equivalent of system patching. Continuous learning reduces dependence on external consultants, empowers internal staff, and builds resilience. Without this investment, knowledge gaps widen, undermining both efficiency and audit readiness. Contingency reserves protect against inevitable overruns. Even with perfect planning, assessment timelines shift, scopes expand, or remediation costs exceed estimates. A prudent budget sets aside 10 to 15% for unplanned expenses, such as unexpected tool upgrades or consultant support during control remediation. For instance, a vulnerability discovery might require emergency patching or architectural redesign outside normal operations. Contingency planning converts surprises into manageable adjustments rather than crises. Building this buffer also signals governance maturity to executives and assessors, showing that risk management extends to the financial layer. Over time, organizations that consistently manage within tolerance build reputational trust in both finance and compliance circles. Multi-year budgeting smooths renewal cycles and reduces financial spikes. HITRUST certifications typically follow 1 or 2 year cadences, meaning renewal costs recur regularly. Planning across multiple fiscal years ensures funding remains available not only for audits, but for the upkeep activities between them, control testing, documentation refresh, and evidence maintenance. For example, allocating partial funding annually for continuous improvement avoids large renewal surges later. Multi-year visibility also supports workforce stability, allowing long-term staffing commitments rather than short-term project contracts. Financial continuity reinforces operational continuity, demonstrating that assurance is not episodic but institutionalized within the organization's core planning. Staffing models must scale with organizational size and risk appetite. For small teams, cross-functional roles often blend responsibilities. A single compliance manager may handle policy updates, evidence tracking, and assessor liaison, supported by part-time system owners. Efficiency comes from automation, templates, and standardized workflows. Outsourcing readiness assessments or documentation tasks can help bridge capacity gaps. For instance, a managed compliance service might maintain the evidence library year-round for a fixed fee. This model suits startups or healthcare vendors with limited internal bandwidth, providing professional rigor without full-time headcount. Success relies on clear ownership and repeatable cadence, ensuring continuity even with lean staffing. Large enterprises require distributed staffing models emphasizing specialization and coordination. Separate teams may manage governance, risk, compliance operations, security engineering, and evidence management. A central program office typically oversees HITRUST activities, supported by subject matter experts in infrastructure, identity, and privacy. Coordination becomes the key cost driver rather than raw labor. For example, a global organization might deploy regional compliance coordinators to maintain time zone coverage and localized evidence. Technology platforms unify documentation and dashboards across units, reducing duplication. Budgeting must include collaboration infrastructure and internal communication training to align these dispersed teams. In large enterprises, staffing success is measured not by headcount but by synchronization across roles and regions. Executive reporting and funding approvals close the financial loop. Leadership expects concise dashboards showing cost versus benefit, highlighting where spending aligns with risk reduction. Presenting compliance as a return on trust, reduced audit exposure, improved client retention, and streamlined renewals strengthens funding justification. For example, showing that automation saved 500 staff hours over a year reframes compliance as operational efficiency, not overhead. Quarterly financial reviews comparing budget forecasts to actuals keep programs accountable. When executives see governance presented with the same rigor as revenue planning, they treat HITRUST as strategic infrastructure rather than a reactive cost center. Sustainable, realistic resourcing turns HITRUST from a project expense into a durable governance program. The right budget and staffing model balance ambition with capability, ensuring every dollar and hour reinforces maturity. E1 builds foundational awareness. E1 operationalizes control rhythm. R2 scales it enterprise-wide. Across all tiers, consistent investment in people, tools, and processes prevents burnout and last-minute crises. A well-structured financial plan provides the stability that technical excellence alone cannot. In the end, compliance strength mirrors budget discipline, careful forecasting, measured growth, and continuous stewardship that keep assurance both credible and economically sound year after year.